Chapter 10 New Duties. While the Resonance Cascade continued its journey to Sutharia, Trig and Anfel were inside the starboard torpedo tube, doing maintenance on the firing mechanism. Anfel talked at length, bringing Trig up to speed on what he should expect from life aboard the vessel. You'll work in 10-hour shifts. Then you get 10 hours to relax, chill out, or sleep. The galley serves meals every 5 or 6 hours, depending on how the chef feels. Are the torpedoes our only weapons? Trig asked. Nah, we've got 6 close-in weapon systems. CIWS, pronounced CWIS. One of the guns can fire about 11,000 rounds a minute. They make a good backup since we only carry 18 torpedoes. Anfel slapped his hand on a space torpedo that was nestled in a nearby rack. Trig could see a small panel on the side with information about the weapon. This says the torpedo was made by MSI, Trig said. How did you get it? We're friends with an arms dealer in the border region, Anfel replied casually. Then he changed the subject. So, how did you sleep last night? You must have racked out hard after everything you went through yesterday. Slept like a baby, Trig admitted. Had a really weird dream, though. A dream? Anfel asked. I dreamed I was standing on the side of a river. Trig's voice drifted a little as he tried to remember. There was a girl on the far shore waving to me. We both waded into the water to try and meet each other, but then she suddenly disappeared. It was like she was never there at all. Then the current washed me downstream and I woke up. I think there was more, but I just don't remember. Strange dream, Anfel muttered. At the same moment, Selborn was leading Tenna through a corridor to her new job. You startled when I woke you up, Selborn said. Did I wake you in the middle of a dream? Yes, a mysterious one, Tenna said in a soft voice. I was trying to cross a river. There was a boy on the other side, and I knew I had to get to him. It felt like I was running out of time. I wish I could remember more. Did you get to him? Selborn asked. No, Tenna replied. You woke me up. Then she realized Selborn had brought her back to the same galley she had slept in the night before. Yeah, the closest shower is 2 decks up. Selborn sounded like she was complaining. But once you do your morning hygiene, come back down here and work with Chef. As soon as we get to the homeworld, I'll find you a proper place to do the termin. Tenna made a mental note to ask Trig what the word termin meant. Selborn pushed the door open and shouted into the galley, Hey, Chef! I found you an assistant! Tenna could hear the sound of a machine whirring in the kitchen, on the far side of the galley. She wondered if the ship had an industrial food processor. Then the kitchen doors opened and a robot emerged. Clad in white plating, this man-shaped machine walked over to meet the 2 organics. Tenna could see that the robot's hands were recently cleaned, and there were food stains on its front. Tenna, Chef. Chef, Tenna, Selborn said. Ah, yes, the lucid dreamer who talks in her sleep, the robot said. Follow me. The robot escorted Tenna into the kitchen. She looked around open-mouthed, stunned by how well organized it was. Please tie your hair up and stow it in a net or headgear, Chef spoke in a computerized voice. The crew insists that I serve 5 meals per day, so this is a fast-paced environment. Tenna reached up and started bunching up her curly red hair. I learn fast, she said. Where do I start? Around the middle of the day, the Resonance Cascade broke free from the gravity of planet Corval 4, Eddleton's parent body. Anfel decided this was a good time for a rest. He told Trig to take an hour-long break and locked up the torpedo tubes. Trig decided to find an exterior window. After a few minutes of searching, Trig found one. The view of his homeworld, slipping away into the darkness of space, was stunning. Trig pressed one hand to the glass and stared until his own breath fogged up the window pane. Tearing himself away from the magnificent green marble hanging in the void, Trig decided this glorious view needed to be shared with someone. He set out to find Tenna. Trig found her in the kitchen. He also found one of the mercenaries. Glossom was there as well. He was hard at work, cleaning up different cookery and crockery items as soon as Tenna finished using them. Trig noticed that the young man was snatching furtive glances at Tenna whenever he could. Trig felt a lurch in his stomach, accompanied by an emotion whose name escaped him. "What are you doing here?" Trig asked, perplexed. "Helping," Glossom replied, in the tone of a child caught doing something wrong. Chef asked Trig why he was there, and Trig admitted he wanted to show something to Tenna. "You get a 15-minute break," Chef told her. "Come back promptly, as I fear this man will desert his post if you are gone too long." As soon as she got out of the galley, Tenna let her hair down. She explained that both Glossom and Anfel had been making up excuses to spend time with her, and she did not know why. "They're hoping you'll pick one of them," Trig grumbled, a little bit of jealousy in his voice. "Pick one?" Tenna replied, sounding confused. "You know, Aethera," Trig said. Then he got carried away. "That whole thing about how Voldemar mate for life and whatever. I see it all the time at school. TS and Birkin boys trying all kinds of ways to get a Voldemar girl to say she wants him. Everybody wants a Voldemar girl. They're prettier than anyone else. And the whole Aethera thing is great. Once she picks you, that's it. She has to stick to you like glue for the rest of her life, and—" Tenna burst out laughing. Trig paused to look at her. "Wait, hold on, back up," Tenna giggled. "You were serious about the whole mating for life thing. I know lots of people on Lightwater who've had more than one boyfriend. Is this really a thing on Sutharian worlds? Do people ever get divorced?" "Well, not all people, just you, Voldemar." Trig raised an eyebrow. "I thought you'd have known that. And Voldemar don't divorce, not when someone does something that calls for Sagri." "Huh." Tenna bit her lip and frowned in thought. "I guess I've got to learn so much about, well, my own culture. Oh, by the way, what's a termin?" Trig gasped and stared at Tenna wide-eyed. "Seriously? How old are you?" "Come on, just tell me," Tenna demanded. "A ritual purification ceremony," Trig explained. "All the Voldemar girls are supposed to do it as soon as they—" He lowered his voice and leaned in to whisper. "You're supposed to do it as soon as you start, puberty. The Voldemar are really strict about their old traditions and customs. If you haven't done the termin yet, then you're going to be in trouble, because it's pretty obvious that you're past the point where you should have done it." Trig gestured to the few stray spots of acne on Tenna's forehead and the general shape of her torso. He stared at her for a moment too long, and she waved her hands in front of his face. Trig? You still in there?" Trig shook himself back to reality, and Tenna got one more laugh at his expense. Trig recovered, and, after remembering what he wanted to do, guided Tenna to the nearest window, saying he wanted to show her something. She looked out, saw Eddleton, and gasped. "Is that your home? It's so beautiful." "Is Lightwater anything like Eddleton?" Trig asked. "No, it's much colder," Tenna replied. Then she turned to face Trig. "You know, I don't think I ever got to thank you for coming with me. You didn't have to." "I know," Trig admitted, "but something tells me we're in this together now." He reached up and patted the pendant attached to his necklace. Tenna looked down at her own crystal. "It must mean something, us both having one," she said. "Where did you get yours?" Trig asked. "About 3 years ago," Tenna replied. "My employer decided to reward me with a day off work. I'd never had one before, so I didn't know what to do with myself. I walked into town and found the Lifewater megachurch. One of the executives took an interest in me." "In you?" Trig prodded. "Yeah," Tenna replied. "He called himself Alex Camber and asked me if I would like to have tea with him. I could tell he was really important. His pictures were everywhere. Mr. Camber said he thought I was special and that he wanted to spend time alone with me in his office. Tenna shuddered. I really did not like spending time with Camber. He creeped me out. Anyway, about a week later, a different man came to the farm where I worked. He never told me his name, but he gave me this crystal and said it was a gift from Alex. I wonder what's so important about these, Trig said. Ponico pretty much jumped out of his skin when he saw we had them. Then it's about time we asked Ponico himself, Tenna replied, as soon as we get some free time. Which reminds me, I have to get back to cooking. I'll see you then.